Hello everybody, welcome to High Water, and of course, as with most of the stuff that I do, there is a little poem attached to this, but most of this video, rather lengthy, but if you wait till the end of this, you're going to see some pretty awesome flooding footage from the great June 2012 freshet caused by the tropical rains that were dumped upon us. A system moved up the Atlantic seaboard in the latter part of May and the first part of June, and the result of that was that Maine received some pretty high levels of rain from that storm system. Some places got as much as 8 inches and possibly more. I know frequently you heard reports of places getting 6 inches and a half to 7.5 inches, and apparently, for the most part, in many communities, this little 3 or 4 day rain system dumped as much water on the state of Maine as it has in most years for the entire month of June. But these views that you're looking at right now, this is the boat landing, upper boat landing on the Androscoggin River in Brunswick, Maine. And that canoe portage sign that you looked at there is actually about the height of my head, maybe just a tad lower than that, but when I'm standing near it on dry ground, I can rest my shoulder against the bottom of the sign. So there's a lot of water here. The roadway is pretty well covered with debris. It was washed up from the flood, so it was a lot higher. I had planned on getting down earlier so I could get some more, even more devastating footage, but by the time I was able to get out of work and get down, it was actually too dark to take any really good pictures that would come out. The shots here of the Black Bridge. It's a historic bridge that stretches across the Androscoggin River between Brunswick and Topsham, Maine. Currently it's closed for repairs. My understanding is that the Department of Transportation would really love to just keep it shut down, but we'll see if they get that fixed again or not, and repaired for traffic. It's a single lane bridge. It's pretty interesting. What you have to do when you get to the end of it is make sure nobody's coming across, and if nobody's coming across, then you're free to go, but if you see another car coming, you have to stop and wait, and that can be pretty dangerous on this side of the road. So I don't blame the Department of Transportation wanting to see it shut down. I think about the only way that it should be kept open is if it's a one-way bridge, going one way or the other. Here you can see some more shots of the water coming down from underneath it here. And this is close too, and you'll be seeing coming up some shots of what is known as the historic swing bridge, which also extends between Brunswick and Topsham across the Androscoggin River. And it's actually a true swinging bridge. Some of the shots that I took from there that you'll see later on are pretty shaky. And that's because even if you're using a tripod, the bridge tends to sway, and there were a lot of people coming and going across there watching the floodwaters while I was filming. There's a shot of it there through the trees. There's a little bit closer shot of it. I didn't take any really good close-up pictures of it, but at this particular trip, but I do have some more that I'm going to show you here in just a minute that'll be superimposed upon the video of the floodwaters. And this is while I'm on the bridge, looking downstream. That's the Topsham shore right now, and where that water is running is actually during normal times of the year. You can actually go out on those rocks and go fishing. I've been there many times. And here's a picture of the swing bridge and what it looks like in all its glory. But while you're relaxing and watching all of this millions and millions of gallons of water rush by, driven by the fury of nature, I penned a little poem that goes towards flooding. For those of you that have paid attention to some of the stuff that I do, I'm what you might call a prepper freak. I like to be prepared, and I like to dabble in the art of survivalism, if you want to call it that. But I penned this little poem. It's called High Water. And it's geared towards those people that, the rains come every year, floods come every year, happens sometimes several times a year. It has here, we had a little bit of a flooding in April, early April. We also had some last August. We also had some last spring. So every year, at least once or twice, sometimes thrice or more, many parts of the country have problems where they have flooding along the rivers and the waterways. And without fail, a lot of people seem to be surprised every time it happens, and they're not prepared, and then they run around like, henny penny, the sky is falling, and global warming is killing us, and all that crap. But this poem is directed towards those cowards that don't want to be prepared. It's called High Water. Every year, at least once or twice, the rains will come and melt the ice, and the snows will melt in the springtime as soon as the springtime sun is felt. And every year the water will rise, even though some will claim it's a surprise. They pay attention to the weather not, and always with their pants down or caught. The rivers rise, overflow their banks, also overflowing the homeless ranks, driving people from their home and causing peoples to suddenly roam. Instead of being well prepared, they run around like a chicken scared. They whine and cry with their mouth open wide, expecting the government to save their hide. The smartest thing that folks can do is move away from the human zoo. Live in the hills where it's high and dry, so that when it rains, you need not cry. That's my short little poem, High and Dry. This is a good view of the Black Bridge that's upriver of the swinging bridge, and the wall of trees that you can see behind that is actually where this video began. Here's a boat launch there with where the canoe portage around the falls starts. This whole trip and the video down here encompasses approximately a mile worth of footage, or stream footage. This section here is a trail that runs along the Topsham side of the river. You'll see some couple of quick shots here where the waters of the river are lapping up along this trail. And last night this trail was submerged under at least a few inches of water, maybe a foot or more. Again, I didn't have a chance to get down here, but from what I can see from indications is that this was when the water was at its highest underwater, and I wouldn't have been able to probably walk down through here safely. So maybe it's just as good I waited today. But still, that across the river that's on the Brunswick side, that's the historic Cabot Mill. Used to be one of the largest employers, and the swing mill was actually built by the employers of the mills so that mill workers could walk across the river rather than having to wait for some other means of transportation, such as a rowboat to get across the river, or the ferry, which was located below the falls. And today, the mill is filled with several different businesses. There's a flea market in there, the waterfront flea market, and also the Cabot Mill Antiques, a restaurant, and several other places. It's a good place to spend the weekend, check them out, check out those fine businesses. Mostly it's known for the dam across the river, and that's the hydroelectric station there that you just saw. And that's the Route 201 bridge. It goes across from Topsham and Brunswick. Down and beyond is the old Penobscot mills. Currently it's housing the Sea Dog Brewing Company. But there's a several feet of fall from where you're looking at here to where the head of tide is. Technically, when you get to where that bridge is, you're at what we call the head of tide, or the foot of the falls. Below that is actually an estuarine, or estuary. It's considered tidal waters. You can fish there without having to get a fishing license, because it's considered part of the salt water fishery. Don't get caught fishing on this side of the bridge though, or you're going to be paying a hefty fine. Yeah, I do know there are people that are dumb enough to do such a thing. Won't tell you who they are, but you know who you are. Shots that I'm taking here are right above the power company side of the river, up above where the dam ends, looking down upon it. You can see where the falls are itself. There was a dam built across the entire stretch of the river, holding back the water. That structure that you're looking at now is where the fishway is, which allows fish to travel up the falls in relative safety. And here we are looking down directly above where the western edge gateway is. You can see that literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons of water per minute going through that small structure. There's a lot of deadly force in there. Nothing could survive it unless they're aquatic. Anybody ever slipped and fell, they'd be gone for good, that's for sure. And that's underneath the 201 bridge. And here we are on the Route 201 bridge looking across to Brunswick, and there's the fishway. That's that inclined concrete structure that you see along the farther shore. And again, this is what we call the tide water mark, or the high tide mark. Generally throughout most of the year when the river is not high, you can actually see below the falls here, the water rise and settle with the coming and the going of the tide cycle. At this particular point here, I'm actually on the very edge, and this is lower down. This is almost at the level of the river, looking underneath the bridge and across. And it's amazing, but where that little island that you can see there, during the old days there was actually a mill on that little piece of rock. So we are back up the in the Topsham side, further back up. The videos that you're going to be seeing here coming up are different clips from different locations that I've taken along my little over a mile journey. The power of the water running down the falls when we have these freshets. And again, they happen sometimes several times a year. Flooding is something that we should always be prepared against if you live in an area that's prone to that. And frankly, any community that has a river of any size at all flowing through it should be prepared to live through any of these floods. I didn't hear of too many people that lost their homes from the flooding this time around. There may have been, and it just hasn't hit the news yet. But there were a few people, and it never ceases to amaze me that people will sit in their homes amidst the rising waters and expect somebody to come rescue them, instead of bugging out as soon as it's clear that the water is rising and it will engulf your home. If you live near a waterway and you know that the water is rising, then you should be long gone before that water ever gets high enough to get to your home. If you don't have the wherewithal to bug out when the time gets ready to bug out, then you really should not be living where you're living. The government's not going to be around to help you all the time. We really need to start becoming prepared to take care of ourselves, especially in the coming years. The current economic situation is such that, in my opinion, we are going to be traveling back into a period equivalent to the recession of the latter 20s and 30s that we lived through. And I truly believe that the only way that we're going to be able to come out of this economic doldrum, if you want to call it that, is the eventual happening of another world war. And by the way, that island that you're looking at there is the one I mentioned earlier. It's usually a lot more showing than that, but during the 1800s there was actually a mill on that island where they made clapboards that was approximately 40 feet by, I think it was 100 feet long or something like that. It was a pretty good sized mill for those days. It ran off a water well, and they cut some lumber. Must have been a pain in the neck to get it over there, but they did some work on that island. It just goes to show what Mainers can do if they let their ingenuity really work. The power of that water is just awesome to watch. This on this side of the river, the Topsham side, back during the early 1800s, there was actually a sluiceway that some people had built to take water from up near where that the gates are. Of course, back then the dam was not built, but they built the sluiceway out of wood to drive the water down towards the mills, almost near where the Sea Dog Brewing Company is today. And that little gully in there is actually what we call the Gravy Hole Stream. But the water was fed to a mill down to the right of where I'm standing now. Also during the 1800s, there was actually a wood fishway that was built on this side of the river that allowed the fish to travel upstream after they did build a dam. Even back then, they realized the value of our fisheries, and they had absolutely no problem taking care of the wildlife back then, in spite of what some people like to say today about the industrial age. There were many well-meaning entrepreneurs back in those days that still managed to take care of the world around them and make money at the same time. That up against where those trees are is where the sluiceway ran, and again it was made out of wood. I don't have any idea how big it was, but it apparently was big enough to power a water wheel to a mill near where that financial institution on Main Street is today. There used to be a little brook running through there too before they built it in. And this is a shot from further back upstream, almost by the swing bridge looking downriver. And that island there, it looks like one now, but it's to the left there, actually has right where that little valley is. The water goes between there and out around. But during the summertime, when the water is low, you can actually walk over to that island. And this is along the Topsham side. This is actually a close-up that I viewed from on the swinging bridge of the water going into the trees. Again, during most parts of the year, I can actually walk in that area. And this is where I mentioned earlier before. This is between the island and the main shore, where that in that little valley section, where it's quite a bit of water running through there. There was actually also during the very early 1800s a small carding mill here. They ran off of a small water wheel, just enough to run the carding machine, where they got some wool from local farmers. There's a wider view of the area. And you could just picture a small structure there with a water wheel. And there's a good shot of the swing bridge there with people walking across it. The water's all close to it. And that way you can see the traffic further across there. That's actually Route 1. And these shots are just below the Route 201 bridge. And this is considered tidal water. Almost looks like the ocean being blown by the wind. And that yellow building that's across the river from where I'm standing here is on the Topsham side. That's currently houses the Sea Dog Brewing Company. It used to house the Preparedness mills and paper company. There were several warehouses and various industries that occupied those buildings. Years ago, it used to be a lot more there, but they burned down during, I believe it was the late 70s, early 80s time frame. I wasn't living in the area then, but see how close the water is coming to the bottom of the bridge. It's a very heavily traveled bridge. The loss of that bridge would be absolutely devastating to the economy of the area. And that's our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep coming back to the Maine Lone Rangers channel, which is actually me, D.L.Soucy. for more fine videos about history and poetry and the happenings of Maine. Enjoy the day.